Hello again. Been a week and a day since the other bit of the video. Now, after I finished recording the last video, I mentioned about the holes in the top of the unit and what I was going to do. Well, thankfully, from a little bit of an idea from my brother, decided to do something slightly different, and I'm going to show you that now. Okay, so I'd mentioned about the holes, you can see here, and there was a lot of them, and they were all different sizes. What I decided to do was to get some nice old pieces of wood where the grain sort of matched the grain on the unit, and I was going to sand them down into dowels. If you know what that is, it's a sort of round piece of wood, to fill the holes, but I would have had to have done every single one bespoke. Every single one of them would have had to have been particular for the hole, the different sizes. And on attempting the first one, I found out that this was not going to be easy to do. This particular piece of wood, it broke up in a not very useful way, and this is where my brother comes in. He happened to come in and he said, why don't you just drill all the holes the same size, and then all the pieces of wood you need will be the same size. I was like, that's not a bad idea. And then he suggested using these, some dowels that we found out of an old bed frame from when we were kids, actually. So basically what we did, I got about 7 of these and chopped them in half, and then every hole that I was going to fill, I've actually drilled them all the same size. So I've drilled them all sort of 10mm holes and then put these in them, which now means that they need sanding down. I've sanded off a bit of the tops of them, sand them down, and I'm now at the point where I'm going to give the whole thing, the whole top, a sanding, because as you can see, it's not in very good condition. But you can see sort of over there where I've been sanding the tops. So I'm going to give that a sand now, but while I'm doing this I'm having to work out a bit of an issue, which is, if I can show it, just here, to get it better in focus. It's not going to focus very well. Well, basically I've got a round hole in a round peg in a round hole, but parts of the top are divoted, and that means it shows up the round even more. Now I know that the round bits are going to show no matter what I do, but it's going to look better than it was, so I don't mind that too much. But where I've got divots here, I'm unsure what to do, because I'm not keen on just leaving them. Now I could try and get clever. See if we can show you on this one better. Yeah, I could try and get really clever and sort of sand the dowel and sort of make a false groove in it, so that it matches, and that might be one way to do it. Could be a bit of a pain in the arse, but could be quite interesting. Another thing that I've been noticing when I've been sanding these tops, actually, the gaps are actually filling up with the sanding dust, the wood dust, and it fills the holes quite nicely. And I was thinking, what if I put a little bit of glue in there and then sanded it and then just let it dry? But I'm not keen on doing that. Another way I'm thinking of is possibly popping some resin in there. Now, something that I could do, I've never tried this, I've never played about with resin, but it might be possible to put something in the resin, some kind of colour, or something, I don't know. But that's something I need to think about. I do kind of like the idea of sort of sanding a false groove in it, because then it would make it look like the groove was made while the dowel was in there, if you know what I mean. Sort of make it look old, but I'm not sure, I don't know, it's beyond my knowledge. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, I'm going to give the top a sanding, and we'll have a look at what it looks like afterwards. I'm still got the tops of the drawers to do. I did make a start on this one last week, but I was doing this while I was trying to think about what to do on the holes over there, and that was when my brother had his idea, and so I abandoned this for the moment. But I do want to try and get some more of these done today if I can, and I also need to try and find some handles. I've been looking online, and annoyingly what I really like to do is just be able to go somewhere that's got a load of drawer handles and pick them out, but not so easy to do because a lot of the handles I'm finding, whereas these have got 4 holes, a lot of the ones I'm finding have only got 2, and if I go for one that's got 2, that means I've got holes, and I don't want that. I'd rather be able to just use the existing holes. So I'll have to see what I can do on that. Anyway, let's get sanding. Let's see what this looks like afterwards. Okay, so I'll dust all over my camera. Update. Still the second day of the videos that I'm doing. Been a tiring day. On the last video clip I mentioned that I wasn't sure what I was going to do about the gaps next to the holes. I can't even remember if I mentioned this, but I know when I was sanding down the... I mentioned it. When I was sanding down... I forgot what they're called. The doobrays that went in the whatsamajigs. Dowel. When I was sanding down the dowels that were in the holes, the sawdust, it's not exactly sawdust, but sanding dust. The sanding dust was filling up the holes quite nicely, the gaps quite nicely. And I wondered about using glue, putting a bit of glue in and then sanding it. And to be honest, my dad happened to pop over and we were talking about a few things, and I mentioned about resin, and he said he's got some wood filler, and then I mentioned about the glue idea, and he said, well, do that, basically, or saying that is the kind of thing that a number of people would do. So I thought, fuck it, I'll do that. And you know what, it worked quite well. But I'll show you something. Okay, so there's the top. Yeah, what I did was I emptied out my sander, and that isn't even half of the stuff, but that's basically fine sawdust. And what I did was I got some glue. Well, originally I just put some glue in the holes, sanded the dowels, and then left it to dry, see how it went. It went alright, but after a while, obviously the glue sank down a bit. So what I did was I thought, well, I'll put some sawdust into the glue, mix it together, put that on, and then sand that down. And that's what I've done. And I mean, it's not too bad. It's filled the gaps quite nicely. But I am gonna, I don't know if you can see that one. I am gonna leave it for a week, and then what I might do, because I want these to harden basically, so that next week I can come along and I can put another sort of section on it, and where this is still got, at the moment it's got a little bit of a divot, but that's because the glue has sank down. So the plan is that this will all harden over the next week, so that when I come next week the glue's not going to sink down further than what's already there. So hopefully it should finish off the holes quite nicely. But as you can see, I have sanded the top and it's not looking too bad. There are a lot of old marks and stuff, and I'm in two minds whether to go, right, I'm just going to keep sanding until it's perfect. But it's not new, it's old. It's older than me. So I think it should show age. So I'm probably not going to sand it all the way down, and I will leave some of these marks in there. I mean, obviously these at the moment are very visible. But hopefully once I've given it another sanding, because obviously I'll fill up the holes as I mentioned, and I will give it another sanding over then, but hopefully when I start applying the varnish, the whole thing will change shape. Now I've not touched the front or the edge, the sides or the back yet, and the main reason for that was I wanted to see what that looked like with those dowels in, and get that sorted out. Once I've got that sorted out, what I'm probably going to do is sand the edge and like just underneath, and then put a coat of varnish on that. And what I'm thinking is I'll put one coat of varnish on that, and then the wood's not going to change in the air, right? Because, for example, last week I had sanded this, and its colour was quite different when I got here this week. So if we look at that one and compare it to this one which I've sanded today, you might not be able to tell much difference, but I can tell there's a difference. There's still some colouring on there, and when I come back next week, this will probably have darkened up quite a bit. So this one I have resanded, so it is now looking much lighter, and more than likely when I come next week that will have gone darker. But I am kind of testing this. I've done the top of that one as well. I'm testing this because what I want to see is whether, for example, if I was to have sanded this, left it weak and varnish it next week, would it end up being a different colour to that one? Now obviously I don't want to actually find out, but by keeping an eye on the wood, that should be telling me yes or no. So next week, hopefully, I won't sand that one, but I will sand that one, right? And this one, I'll re-sand these, and then maybe the week after, I can varnish the front of them. Because again, like the top, I want to see what the varnish is going to look like on the top before I do these, but also for the fronts, I could sand all of the shelves, right, and then varnish all of the shelves. But if there is going to be a difference of colour from when one is sanded to when the last one is sanded, or when the first one has finished being sanded to when the last one starts getting its varnish, there could be a big time difference, and if the wood's going to change colour, I want to avoid that. So the plan will be, for example with these three, to get them finished off sanding at the same time, so that I can then put one coat of varnish on all three of these. These then will be put to one side, and then I'll move on to the next three, sand them down, and then put one coat of varnish on all of those. And while I'm waiting for varnishes to dry, that's when I can tackle the rest of this unit. So if I put one coat of varnish on that, then hopefully it's not going to change colour before I can actually get to varnish the bottom. So this is going to take some time, and I could end up with different colorations. Now, one of the things that I had mentioned previously was about this. Now, it turns out that this whole thing is actually made of mahogany. Even the sides, every part of it pretty much is made of mahogany. So what I am going to do, I'm probably not going to sand the backs because they don't get seen anyway. But I am not varnish. I am going to varnish the whole of the drawer, basically, for coat number one, right? And then I will see what the sides will look like. The fronts will definitely get 3 to 4 coats. And the sides probably only the one, to be honest. They don't really need it, but even if I just put the one coat, if I show you down here, even though this has been sanded, this is much darker than this, even though it's the same wood. Now I could sand it and sand it to get it the same colour, but that's not the intention. It's darker. Now when I varnish it, it will come up darker as well, so hopefully it will keep its original pattern. Right, that's it for today, sawdust and all. Yeah, let's see how it comes on.